All right. So here we are at the Global Entrepreneurship Workshop. I'm super, 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 super excited for this because to me, location independence is part of the freedom of entrepreneurship if you want it. And again, location independence is part of freedom. So I'm just stoked to help anyone who's listening to the replay or who is in the workshop today who wants to understand more like how this might look for their lives. I'm stoked. So just a reminder of who I am. I'm Veronica Kieran. I help small business owners build their empires through giving the startup scaling toolbox to small businesses. And I am a global entrepreneur myself. I've had a location independent business for 4 years, 5 years. I don't know. It's been a while. But I finally left my country of origin a year and a half ago, and I moved from the United States to Europe and living full-time-ish in Berlin. And then I also regularly come to Split, Croatia, where I am today, where I'm also a dual citizen, where I am leading my Empire Retreat next week to scale small businesses in 1 week. It's crazy. So that is the scope that I'll be talking through is as somebody who is both an immigrant and somebody who is a dual citizen. So we're going to go ahead and introduce the other guests on the panel today, because this is like the best panel ever. And I'm going to start with Viktor because you're already unmuted. So Viktor, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how your experience with global entrepreneurship looks?
Sure. So, hi, my name is Viktor, and I actually come from Split, Croatia, where Veronica is right now. But I'm right now in Bangkok, Thailand, and I'm a software developer slash freelancer slash entrepreneur. I got a small software agency. It's me and one employee, so it's two of us, both of us software engineers, and I've been traveling since forever, since I know myself. My parents divorced when I was 5 years old, and my father moved to live to another country. So I went to visit him at least once a year. And yeah, basically I early on got to travel by myself, by boat, by train. And so I went to college to a different city, to capital city of Croatia, Zagreb. And after that, I went to work abroad. My first full-time job was in Dublin, Ireland. And then I quit because it was not enough traveling, working in an office. I worked for Microsoft over there. And so I quit the job and I took a remote work position. And so ever since, I never looked back. This was 2016. And so since 2016, I'm fully remote. And I've been remote and traveling a lot during my studies. There were times and years when I would spend more days out of my country than in my country. I know this because it's illegal to do so. And also I had some other issues with crossing the EU border because of that, but it all worked out pretty well. And yeah, so right now I'm in Bangkok, Thailand. My lease here is until 20th of June. And basically that's how I roll. Month after month, and you know, I work remotely, and yeah, so far so good.
Yeah, I know you have so many adventures to share with us, and I can't wait. So Chris, I'm so excited for you to be here, and like you have a setup where you can actually show us where you are. So tell us about this amazing place that you're in.
Okay, so I and my husband and I moved to Costa Rica on July 4th, 2018, our Independence Day, and we've been here almost 4 years. And my husband actually he teaches English, so he's busy that way. Even though he's been retired, he retires like every couple of years. And with me, I am a vegan lifestyle coach and educator. So my job is basically to coach people to help them move toward a plant-based lifestyle. And
Oh, Chris, your audio cut out just a moment ago. So we got you back.
Okay.
You said you're a vegan lifestyle coach and your job is to help people.
Yes, help people to transition to a plant-based lifestyle. So, and that can be done anywhere because of, the technology that we have. And so, yeah, and then I'm going to just start branching out to do more. I've been providing some desserts to restaurants here, vegan desserts. And yeah, thinking about providing retreats for people, all vegan retreats. I would love.
And we lost your audio again. I know that the Wi-Fi can be challenging, and that's actually a great segue into, some of the things to think about if you are taking your business on a road is what kind of Wi-Fi and internet connectivity is available, because if you're running a business, you do have to be connected to the internet unless your business is local, but then you're not a global entrepreneur anymore, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Hopefully this is better, being closer to the router. But so we've been here for almost 4 years, and we are temporary residents and are working on our permanent residency. That's kind of just after 3 years, you can apply for it. And I also have dual citizenship with the UK. So I was born in England. And my husband and I are working on Croatian citizenship. Yeah. Love Croatia.
And we didn't know
yeah,
that. I just want to be clear to people who are watching. I didn't intentionally say let's get all the Croatians, but I guess we gravitate towards each other. But Chris and I did not know that about each other for the first year we knew each other.
I know. Yeah, it's exciting. It's so exciting.
Yes.
So, but yeah, it's always nice, and my stepchildren, my husband's children, are also applying for it. They recognize the benefit of having more than one passport and citizenship, and it makes your ability to work and live someplace much easier.
Yeah. So we'll peel this back a little bit, because I know a lot of people are chomping at the bit for dual citizenship, and especially, I guess I don't want to say especially Americans, but our country of origin, yours and mine, Chris, is the United States, and things are getting hairy. And so I know more and more people are getting curious about this, but then there's also work benefits. So for example, I'm returning to Split next month. I'm speaking at the startup event hosted at the university, and the university money is in part funded through the European Union, and the money has to stay in the European Union. It has to be given to a European Union resident. So if I wasn't a resident, so either having a business in the EU, which you can do through e-residency through Estonia, which is a whole nother can of worms we can open. This is going to be a very information-packed workshop, and we might have a few more if there is demand. But so being a resident, having a business in the EU, or being an EU citizen, that allowed me to get this opportunity. Otherwise, they would have had to say no to me, right? So dual citizenship opens up business doors, not just travel doors. I'm curious what you found. Where are the benefits, either on a personal note or within your business?
I haven't used it. I'm not very happy about Brexit, because that just took the whole EU out of my ability to work there. But I do, with the Croatian one, that's going to definitely open up the being part of the EU. It'll open up some more opportunities. So yeah, that's something that's going to be in the future, thinking forward.
And one of the questions that I've gotten are what do we worry about taxes and taxation? So anyone who's not sure, the United States is the only country in the world that taxes its citizens when they don't live there. So if you are a dual citizen, for example, Chris, you're a dual citizen with the United Kingdom, but you're not paying taxes to the United Kingdom because you're not spending enough time there. So if I spent more than a certain amount of time in Croatia per year, then I would have to do taxes to Croatia, but I'm only here sporadically. And so Viktor, I'm curious because you're on the road all the time. Like I saw you in December just by chance, but you were in Berlin. You weren't even in your home. And so I know that the tax issue is definitely a curiosity point for people around the world. And so how do you find like managing your business taxes is as somebody who is a digital nomad on the road all the time?
That's a great question, and it's one that I've been also asking myself a lot and researching, asking several online experts, gurus, whatever. And so the thing is that you have to pay taxes somewhere. And so I don't live. I don't know. I'm usually in Croatia a couple of weeks a year. So that's not enough, and I could say that I shouldn't pay taxes there. Okay. But then where do I pay taxes if I also spend, 1 or 2 months in each country? So in that case, you basically pay taxes back home. So in my case, my nationality, I have only one passport, unfortunately. It's Croatian. And so I pay taxes back in Croatia. You could try to get away without paying taxes anywhere, but there's a risk, and that's illegal as well. It's not easy to catch you all the time. Maybe you heard of these tax havens, so you could try some things here and there. But you're by law obliged to pay taxes. If you don't live anywhere for at least 6 months, then it's your home country. Home country meaning where you have your citizenship.
Yeah, your country of origin.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's the same, like even worse actually a little bit than working remotely. Working remotely is also another thing, because if you're working, you're not traveling as a tourist. So if I'm traveling, I'm now in Thailand as a tourist, I shouldn't be working because I'm not on a business trip. So if I am working, that means I should be paying some taxes or ask for a business visa and this and that. So this is kind of gray area. But then if you add, I don't want to pay taxes on top of that, that's not gray area. That's illegal. A gray area here meaning no one will charge you for this, but it's not something that's 100% legal. So I cannot say, hey, I'm working here, like I have some rights for, I don't know, safety at work or whatever. I'm working from a cafe in a Bangkok center.
And you actually touched on, I don't know if you've heard of this concept, but you're touching on a concept called being a stateless citizen. So there are a few, not many, a few people who truly give up all citizenship. There is an issue with that though, because there's no protections. A lot of countries won't even let you in because there's no way to account for you. Like, who are you? So anyone who's like wondering how to roll under the radar, I don't recommend going stateless because the consequences are enormous and it doesn't result in more freedom. So more citizenships or digital nomading where you get more visas, more residencies, that equals more freedom in my book. And that's what I'm about.
So the difference is, if you want to go live alone outside of society, you can be stateless. If you want to live in society with other people, crossing borders, you have to have citizenship and the passport.
Yeah, you do, and you'll want it. I don't even know if like Liberland in between Croatia and Serbia, there's this tiny little 7-kilometer community. I don't know if they'd let you in. So it really does matter. So that's, I don't recommend going stateless. But so Chris, you're kind of like doing the in-between. I know you have dual citizenships as well, but setting that aside, you're not a dual citizen with Costa Rica. You're living there on a resident permit. And I think when I talk to people, and before I figured it out myself, it felt like an enormous task. Like, how do I get a visa or move abroad if I'm not a citizen? And to be clear, I moved abroad before I was a dual citizen. So I did have to jump through hoops. And now I understand it's a lot of just paperwork. But you had to figure that out as well. And now you're living in a country where you are not yet a permanent resident. So what was that process like, both personally and as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think, I think the most important thing for me, what I did before I left the United States is I established an LLC. So that allows me to operate a business here because I'm operating through a US company. So here in Costa Rica, if you are not a permanent resident, you can own a business, but you can't run it. You can't work it. So I don't know how anybody does that. They pretty much make it impossible. Not allowed to work for a Costa Rican company at all until you're a permanent resident. And even then, I mean, there's no real benefit. The pay is really, really low. But just trying to figure out ways around I don't want to say around the rules. That sounds illegal, but it's not. It's just ways of doing it that make everybody happy. So that's how I'm doing everything, is through my LLC.
Yeah, and I think all of us are running our businesses from our countries of origin. Is that correct? Yeah.
That's correct. I did have some venture into Seychelles company, but it was a lot of issues with payment. So when my clients were paying me, then it was a red flag for their tax revenue office, and they'll be like, hey, what's this? And then, they had issues, and also, making bank transfers. And so I just decided to shut it down. But yeah, there are a couple of countries where, it might be easier, like Hong Kong, Singapore, UAE, Dubai, or maybe even just in the States. Like, it's not zero tax, but Delaware is pretty good location, and could be some other as well.
Yeah, that's actually where my business is incorporated in now, is in Delaware. So to just kind of, we already come around to taxes again because it's such an important topic. So to peel that layer back, really, mostly you get taxed where you live. Mostly. Digital nomading is a little bit different. But in general, that's who wants to tax you. And so I don't live in the United States. So why would I have a business in a state that has income tax when I don't live there? So that's why I'm in Delaware. That's why Viktor brought it up. I think there's 2 states in the United States that don't have income tax in their options. With regards to a digital nomad visa, so I have a whole blog developing on my website. So anyone who's curious about what are the visas available right now, I'm going through the weeds for you. Greece has a digital nomad visa. Well, it has 2 visas. One of them puts you more onto a potential residency, permanent residency track, which is, I think, really interesting to some people who are going to be watching or might be reading the blog. And so I did make that distinction. That particular visa in Greece also will waive 50% of your taxes for the first 2 years, I believe it is, that you are in the country running a business in the country. So the digital nomad visas are newer. Estonia was the first country to offer it, and they offered it, I believe, in 2018. Before you had a visa jump. Viktor, did you do that? Did you have to visa jump before you had these opportunities where you could come and live for a year?
What do you mean by visa jump? I had to move countries because of my tourist visa expired?
Oh, the visa is only 3 months or 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. Most of the countries, at least for Croatia, but I believe for other citizenships, other passports as well, give you 3 months tourist visa, 90 days. And there are some countries who would give you more, and there could be some other visas that you can apply for to get longer tourist visa, or some other like digital nomad visa. And right. So yeah, that was kind of back in the day one of the reasons why I just decided, okay, 3 months it is. You know, it will be at most 3 months that I'm going to spend in a country. Then I can either, you know, do what's especially popular here in Thailand. It's called visa run, where you basically cross the border and then you come back. And there are agencies here that do just that. They take you to the border crossing, you cross the border, and on the same day or the next day you're back. Because there's visa on arrival for 30 days. So a lot of people just take visa on arrival, and then 30 days later you go out and come back. But yeah, usually it's 3 months. And so 3 months, yeah, I had to do it a lot.
Yeah. I have a colleague who has been outside of the United States for over a decade, but the digital nomad visas weren't available until 2018, and there was only one in Estonia. So sure, he would do that.
I'm not sure it was Estonian visa. They call it digital residency. But I'm not sure that you could use it to live there. Maybe it's another. They have
an e-residency, and they have a digital nomad visa, and they were the first ones to roll out the digital nomad visa officially. So it's 1 year, similar to most. But yeah, they're the ones. And so if you're curious about like, how do I have an EU-based business so I can apply for EU funding, but I don't live there, you can get an Estonian e-residency and then found a business in Estonia that way. And then you have access to European Union funds if you want it. So that's, again, these like little hacks that are available that people don't necessarily know about.
Speaking of EU funds, European Union is actually giving a lot of money through these funds. And I'm talking here about millions of euros. Yes. I mean, billions if you sum it up, but it could be even €1 million to a single company. So what basically there's a huge organizations within European Union that are kind of, you know, the union organizations. It's not private businesses. And so what these organizations do, they take a certain branch, part of the economy of the union, let's say, and they choose to develop it, or they are responsible for developing it. So, for example, in Croatia now is very popular recycling or helping farming. So there, if you're interested in that, you can, I don't know, open a recycling facility in Croatia. You'll get a lot of funds. And but there could be there's a lot of innovation grants, and so most of these are in English and French because it's European Union kind of has, I believe, these two as official languages, and so English is worldwide spoken language. So you don't need to speak Dutch or Italian or I don't know, Croatian to be able to apply, read the grant requirements and apply for grants. And of course, if you're, for example, you're in Croatia and EU is giving this money, this means basically that money outside of Croatian borders is going in the country. And so Croatian government businesses, not businesses, Croatian government branches will help you, actually, offices will help you fill in the form so that you get the grant. Basically, they know what you need to write so that you get the grant. So you can ask, and you know.
Yeah, and I know in Germany, health tech, med tech, very popular because Germany can be a little bit old school. We still use the fax machine. And so because of the pandemic, it became very clear that the med tech industry was an enormous opportunity. There's tons of funding there. Chris, you're in Latin America. So you're on another continent, and then I'm going to circle back to you, Viktor, because you are actually on another continent as well right now. But so Chris, what does the entrepreneurial landscape look like within your region? I know you're specifically in Costa Rica, but maybe you also know what some of the other organizations are doing as well. So what does that all look like right now?
I think tourism is a huge draw here. That is a big part of who employ, who's employing the ticos, the locals. And so that's why you have a lot of people that are starting restaurants and hotels and retreat centers and things like that. So that is probably the most popular entrepreneur, industry. I guess I'd put it that way. Yeah, I mean, lots and lots of people want to come here and teach yoga, have their own, which is, if you, I guarantee nobody's doing it legit because of, the way you have to, everything's under the table kind of, but that kind of thing is very appealing to people traveling here and living here too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of like what we were talking about right before we started. Like Costa Rica has this kind of magical draw to it. I don't know how else to put it, but so it pulls a lot of people who are attracted to the jungle, to the heat, to the sea. All of those have their own kind of essence, and it has a little bit of everything. Like you said, there's a freaking volcano that you can see from your balcony.
Yeah. It is a very, very magical place. And I think especially, I mean, I remember the first time I saw Costa Rica, I thought it was the most beautiful place I'd ever seen. We live in the mountains, which, not a lot of people travel to the mountains because the beaches are such a big draw, but it is blissful here. It is so beautiful. And it's something you don't want to miss. I mean, and we live about 40 minutes from La Fortuna, which is hot springs and zip lining and hiking and horseback riding and all sorts of those kinds of things. But yeah, we're really fortunate to have such an amazing natural beauty here.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a huge attraction for sure. I mean, I know that people absolutely come to Croatia for the beaches and for the sea, and for the mountains. There's a digital nomad visa available for Barbados. I mean, why do you think people are going to Barbados? They want the sea, they want the vistas, right? Viktor, so you're in Thailand. Have you heard about like what the landscape is like entrepreneurially where you are? We were talking about funding and grants and opportunities that are available to someone when they're local. What have you noticed now that you've been there a while?
Just before that, there is also digital nomad visa in Croatia since 2 years, I believe. But yeah, so Thailand is corporate tax is also low, about 10%, but don't quote me on that number. This is Bangkok and Chiang Mai are probably one of the top destinations for digital nomads, and it's been this way even before COVID. I don't know, since 2015 or around that time. So basically, it's there have been a lot of digital nomads, but mostly one-man bands or people traveling and working remotely. Not really people having their companies here funded in Thailand. So Thai bureaucracy can be sometimes maybe a little bit slow, and there's also a lot of issues similarly to Costa Rica, where ownership is a big issue, like with real estate. So you always have to have some kind of an agency who's owning, I don't know, 51%, and then you own 49%. So it's always kind of, you feel always a little bit uneasy because you just paid 100% and you own 49% of something. And yeah, so I don't know of a strong entrepreneurial scene of companies here, but I do know a friend of mine from Netherlands is actually a company owner. He lives here in Bangkok, so he founded a company here. He first worked here for a big company, and then he just funded his own company, and now he works for himself basically.
Amazing. I have heard that founding in Hong Kong is a great opportunity tax-wise. And also I have heard that Singapore's startup scene is just going gangbusters.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you just referring to Thailand. Yes.
Yeah,
Singapore
and
is
the surrounding area. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Singapore is a huge market here, and they kind of finished or reached the top of the pouring money into financial sector, and now they're putting a lot of money in big data, AI. So a lot of very interesting opportunities. It's definitely a growing market, and yeah, like in Singapore, everyone, when I was there, I just felt like everyone is so highly educated. Everyone is like it's very developed country.
Yeah.
And having a company there, it costs maybe together with accounting a couple of $100 a month, which is nothing.
Wow.
So
yeah,
that would be all the expenses that you have for running a successful business, that you can have, you know, issue invoices, have a banking account, everything you need basically. And I wanted to touch on that again on the taxes point, which is when you have a company, you're not actually earning money on your name. The company is earning money. And so you first pay the taxes, if there are any, as a company earning money. And then if you want to spend that money, you can either buy something as a company. So you need to prove that this is something useful for a company. So you cannot buy, I don't know, yourself a drone if you're doing, I don't know, e-commerce or whatever, except if your e-commerce is selling drones, but you get the point. So you need to transfer money to yourself, and that is you can pay yourself a dividend, or you can employ yourself and then pay yourself a salary. So this is, you know, again, you're basically paying kind of double taxes, but yeah, that's how it is.
And depending where you're incorporated, that's why where you're incorporated matters. And that's why, as you touched on, deductibles matter. The more you buy with your company, it has to be within reason, obviously. But hey, if I buy myself a brand new MacBook Pro every single year, I don't, because I believe in longevity of technology. But if I did, that's an enormous write-off that then I don't have to pay the taxes on, right? So yeah. And oh, you were touching on another point that I really wanted to get into, but let's talk about the application process and the visa process, because we've all been through it to some extent. And Emily, I know that you're here, so if you start having questions you want to dive in with as well, I'm making the invitation at this point that you can also pitch your questions. So let's start with the visas. Like if we're doing dual nomading or digital nomading, if we're doing dual citizenship or we're doing residency, what is that like? How about Viktor, will you speak to digital nomad or just the temporary visas? Chris, you can talk about the residence visas, and I'll cover dual citizenship, even though I know we all have overlap within each. How's that sound?
All right, maybe I start first.
Yeah.
So for many countries, you can literally just, you know, get on the border and they put a stamp and you're in. So, and it lasts for 90 days. That's the easiest visa. It's kind of, I'm not sure if, I think the stamp counts as visa, although you don't really apply for any visa. And then there are other more complicated. In case of Croatian citizenship, I'm one of the rare countries that has to apply for Thai visa. So I decided this time to apply for special tourist visa, which they issued, they introduced during the COVID times. And so it's 9 months visa. So the process is similar to 3 months visa, which is the one that I usually get. So I just decided to apply for my 9 months visa. Basically, no one really wants you to fail in a way. Sometimes you might find someone who's having a little bit bad day and will try to maybe reject your visa. But usually you're working together and they want to help you out to get the visa. You just need to have all the right paperwork. And so you can even, what I did, I needed to go to Budapest because the Croatian embassy, Thai embassy in Croatia had to close down because of the earthquake. So I went to, before going to Budapest, I had to prepare all the documents, and I have all the documents in Croatia because, you know, I'm a Croatian citizen, and anything I need, I can go to Croatian government, police, whatever. And so I emailed them, I called them, and after calling a few times, I finally got someone to answer the phone, and they told me exactly what I needed. And I also read online because in this short conversation, they forgot one document, so I actually got it and before going there. And so when I got there, I had all the documentation, and just, you know, everything was pretty smooth. I just gave the papers and waited and came back, I believe, in an hour or in the afternoon the same day, and got my visa.
Yeah,
That's how it usually works with business. Yeah.
In my experience, just over prepare. Bring more documents than you think you need, just in case.
That's correct. So now every 3 months I have to extend my 9-month visa. So after first 3 months I needed to extend it, and I didn't have the proper health insurance. I had health insurance, but I needed to have a little bit higher health insurance. So I had to come back the next day. And so I just printed everything, and I saw in the PDFs that I received in my email for my new health insurance, I received terms and conditions, which was like 15 pages. So I just printed all of that, put it all together, and just passed it to a lady at the counter. I was like, I don't know. They told me I need this one yesterday. So this is all the documents. So the lady started laughing, and I was also like pretending I have no idea what I'm doing. And so she was like, okay, just give this guy an extension.
Aha, okay, so I see a way to be wily. So Chris, you've gone through the permanent residency or temporary residency on the runway to permanent residency, but what's getting the resident permit like? Does it sound different? Does it sound similar?
Yeah, so they have several different paths to residency. One of them is called rentista, which is you're buying a house that's over, I think, $150,000. So it's an investment in Costa Rica. And then there's the pensionado, which is what my husband is, and he's over 65, he's retired. He had to prove, you know, how much he gets Social Security, how much he gets for his pension, and then you can apply that way. I fell under that because we're married. And then the next thing would be we used like an immigration expert. She's not an attorney, but she held our hand through the whole thing. I highly recommend that if you're going to a residency route. There's a company called Outlier Legal Services that is great for getting that process started, because it could be tricky, and especially if English is not, you know, or Spanish is not, you know, your first language. It can be very tricky. But so that was how we ended up getting it when we did. And then, you know, it's just basically we have an attorney we work with here in town, and they help us through the rest of this whole process.
Yeah, and actually, so I had to do a resident permit as well when I moved to Berlin, and we did the same thing. We worked with a company called How to Berlin, and the speed with which she could get us the appointments at the government offices was mind-blowing. Like, my friends were like, how did you get that particular paper in the same day? Like, it takes me months. So sometimes, especially when you're overwhelmed, I just want to say to anyone who is immigrating, when you're overwhelmed, adding the layer of learning a new bureaucracy in addition to a new language, and in addition to packing all your things and figuring it all out, it can be really nice to work with someone. And she did, at How to Berlin, she did mine and my partner's resident permits. No, our blue cards and our driver's licenses, and our you have to get a paper in Berlin for where you live because of the way that the Soviet occupation worked. she did that all for both of us for 300 euro total for 2 people. So it doesn't have to be a lot of extra money. But at the same time, as Viktor said, there's a lot of information online. I've included as many links as I can directly to government websites that describe the visa process. It's often just filling out a form, copies of your passport, copies of your birth certificate, proof of income. They really want to make sure you're coming into the country able to self-sustain. So it's just checking the boxes. And now I got dual citizenship, and I know, Chris, you're going through this process as well, and it's going to sound very familiar since we're going to the same country. But it felt very overwhelming at first. But just like Viktor said, the embassy, the consulate, they want to work with you. They want you to succeed because it is actually good for everybody. And so my consulate sent me a list. It was right after the law had changed in Croatia to make me eligible. I was not eligible before. And so I couldn't find the information online, but the consulate sent me the information and I went down the checklist. It was a lot of paperwork. It was a lot of chasing paper trails for my family, but it was really just showing lineage in my case, because I have dual citizenship through birthright. My family is historically Croatian, so I went through what they call jure sanguino, right? So you're my right through blood, and so I had to show birth, marriage, and death certificates for everybody all the way down the line, and I had to give my CV, and I had to have a background check, and here's my copy of my passport, and everything has to be translated, and you have to get the international seal, which is called an apostille. So it can't be certified within the country it was created in. It has to be apostilled as well. So dual citizenship, it cost me about 2,000 USD, but that was over the course of a year, and that's all told with the application fee, which was $200. And even my application for my passport, then those final little pieces, that was like $35, $50. There's just like a few final things once you actually get the yes. So Viktor,
I just ran out of electricity.
Oh no, great timing.
It's
So
all right.
yeah,
I got a full battery.
you do, and you still have Wi-Fi though,
Sharing
huh?
internet from my phone, so this is how you're prepared.
And that's the other thing. So actually, when I first moved to Berlin, we had the worst internet. And I did a lot of research on the little like dot, the like Wi-Fi dots that you can buy. So there's like a portable, it goes through the data, it's 5G, so it's fast. But so if you want a digital nomad, I know some people who travel around the world in a van. You can go country to country in a van. There you go.
It's been pouring rain outside, so maybe just
wow. Okay.
Right. Anyways,
so we're
never mind.
So this is like the real experience that like you're living in a country that is in its rainy season right now, so you're having an experience.
As a disclaimer, this is the first thing that this happened since I got here 4 months ago, so it doesn't happen regularly. We do have electricity in Thailand.
Yes.
Emily,
do you have any?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was just inviting Emily. Emily, if you're listening and you'd like to ask a question, just go ahead and take yourself off mute and hop right in when you're ready.
Yes, I actually do. So my dreams around being global, I guess you could say, is having the ability to travel around during my off season, which is usually November through February, March. And from what I've gathered through what Viktor has said, it sounds like visas would be the way to go for that kind of thing, depending on where I wanted to go. Honestly, Thailand is top of the list for me. I visited there in 2018 and have been itching to get back ever since. But it's just, so I'm curious around the legalities of being away on a visa, but still like running my business from that place. Like, is that allowed?
Yeah, so like I was saying, it's kind of gray area, and maybe I don't remember. I didn't really pay much attention. I might have heard that at one occasion there was, you know, police busting some co-working space or something, but this is just, you know, it's more of just maybe the co-working space didn't pay the police fee or something. So it's basically, it's not really something that's highly prosecuted or anything. Like I've never had any issues, and especially now after COVID, it's completely normal. Like I see in every Starbucks at least one person working remotely in Bangkok. Like there's so many digital nomads all over the world, and I'm sure that most of them are not permanent residents in the country or Starbucks where they are working from. So yeah, it's not officially, it's not recognized as a allowed way of operating a business, but it's the same as if you're in Bahamas on a beach 10 years ago and you check an email on your phone. It's basically, it could be considered work and you could be arrested, but you know, no one ever arrested anyone for that reason. So it's yeah, it's, I would say it's 100% safe, and it's not something that's yet been regulated, but there will be some regulations in the future, but those regulations would maybe only help or improve, you know, so that you can feel at ease, or that you know what you're allowed and not allowed to do. But until there is a certain regulation, basically, you can just work away.
And I want to underscore for people who are listening that when you own a business, it is like you're working for another company. For example, if you're working for JP Morgan Chase or whatever, one of the biggest banks in the world, right? Who's to say that I'm here not working for a company that I don't know? Companies and the individuals that own them are technically legally separate entities, which is why they're taxed separately as well. So especially, Emily, if you're going for just the typical 3-month tourist visa, if you had time off work or you were working remote for that time, but for a company you didn't own, there wouldn't be any sense of, you know, confusion or whether or not that's allowed. For the special dispensation visas, like for the longer term visas, the digital nomad official visas, or residency, that's when you do have to start looking at tax requirements, income requirements, and being a little bit more above board. But if you just get the stamp in your passport and you enter the country, you're taking a trip. Who knows? Who's to know?
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, that was an awesome question, I think.
I wanted to kind of maybe circle back at the very beginning. It's not only about entrepreneurs traveling around the world, but I know a lot of people are kind of scared to take this first step of, you know, going for the first time abroad in this kind of context of, I'm not just going to travel as a tourist to Croatia for 2 weeks, but, you know, it's more like, I'm gonna go to Croatia for 2 months and work from there as well, from my laptop, working on my business. So people are afraid because for basically because of a lot of the unknowns, right? You've never done that, so you don't know, right? If there's gonna be electricity, if there's gonna be internet, and so I would say this is maybe some kind of skill that you get with experience over time, for sure. Because right now, and I did this actually, first time I landed in Colombia, I connected to Wi-Fi at the airport and booked a hostel for that night. Like I didn't have any accommodation when I landed, first time ever in Colombia. Like I've never been before in the country. So don't do that. Don't try it this way. It's not recommended to do it this way, but I'm just saying that there's a lot of these unknowns that are not that big of a deal. Like why I said we have electricity here is because there's some differences between countries, but there really isn't all that many differences. Like SIM cards and mobile networks and roads and road rules and electricity work the same all around the world pretty much. And so you can get almost anything you need almost everywhere you go. Of course, there are some remote areas where it's not possible, but any bigger city has got you covered. So do your homework and prepare a little bit, but there is really nothing scary. I mean, keep in mind that, you know, some things might take longer, like, I don't know, extending visa, you would need to go twice, maybe, like I had after, I don't know, 10, 15 years of traveling. I had to go 2 times to the immigration to extend my visa after second time. So, you know, these things happen, and, you know, you need to account for these things. You cannot go on your last day of your visa and expect to get your visa extended. So I went, I don't know, 1 month before, because I just wanted to take a day off for my work. So yeah, basically some things might be slower and bureaucracy might not work like you expected back home. And so after a while, I will also probably, if I'm looking for more permanent residency, I'll hire an agency just to take care of this. But so far for tourist visas, it's a little bit easier process. So I just keep going like this now.
And I think you also highlighted a point that you didn't realize you were, Viktor, that when we travel for the first time, it feels freaky, as you said. People around the world are just living their lives. Everyone's just living their lives just like you want to. And there's community everywhere. So the expat, the immigrant, the digital nomad, the dual citizen communities are enormous. Yes. We just had a nomad camp here last week, which is a enormous international conference for digital nomads. They also do one on a cruise every year. So if you're looking for a cruise with fellow digital nomads, there's Facebook groups, there's subreddits, there's like the breakfast I just went to today. So when you feel like, oh my gosh, it's a whole new world, what do I do? There are people who've gone before you. You've got 3 right in front of you. So we're almost out of time, but any final things you all want to say? I'd love to hear your final thoughts and words for folks thinking about global entrepreneurship.
I think the only thing that the best advice I can give to someone who's pursuing this is that you have to, kind of like what Viktor said, is just be prepared for things to be different. If you're going to expect it to be just like the US or your home country, and you get frustrated by the bureaucracy or the inability to find your favorite brands of something, or how long things may take, you know, you just have to go with it. And that's part of the adventure. That's part of what changes you, and what makes traveling and working remotely around the world such a special thing.
Yeah, I would also say that this having experienced, I don't know, people in Latin America being very laid back, and, you know, I'm in a rush and I need something now because I got a call with the client, and they are like taking their time to, I don't know, bring me the papers or coffee that I ordered or whatever. And so it's it kind of also taught me a lesson of basically trying to make my life less rushed in a way. So I'm just like, because I always appreciated punctuality a lot, and I still do, but I just realized that I'm less angry at people being late when we meet, because I also kind of realized it's easier for me now to just, you know, do the things I usually do, but in a more relaxed way, more easier, more slower. And it's kind of maybe, you know, also making me less stressed, anxious, and at the end of the day, things get done. And, you know, I still get to enjoy life and everything else that I wanted to do. It just feels slower, but I'm not there, you know, just like bouncing around, like waiting. But I'm like, okay, you know, this takes time, more than maybe, I don't know, in Germany or other countries where systems are well organized. But, you know, at the end of the day, things get done, and, you know, there's another day. So, yeah.
I'm laughing because like Germany getting something done fast. Ha 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 ha. So my final thing to say, everyone, as we're wrapping up here, is just do it. You've got, you've got one life that you know of. Like that's what the human awareness can tell us. And if you're thinking about doing it, just do it, because you don't know what's going to come next. You don't know if a parent is going to get sick and you need to be back in your home country. You don't know if you're going to meet somebody and want to procreate, and all of a sudden you have all these little humans that you're taking care of. And I know people who do digital nomad with families, and there are digital nomad visas that allow for families, but it is that much harder. So if you have even an inkling that you want to live someplace else, even for 6 months, even for 3 months, do it. Oh my God, just do it. And
the worst that will happen, like you just
the worst is you'll have an adventure.
Go back. Yeah.
There's some great stories to tell.
And you'll have great stories. Your beer buddies will be enthralled. So just do it, and we're here to help. We're in the Empire Builders Lounge. The link is in the description. So it's a free community on Discord. Come on in. We're happy to help. We're happy to talk about this all day long. And we're all here like, this is a great thing. Just do it. So thank you, Viktor and Chris, for being here and for showing the way, explaining your own experiences and how this has worked out for you. I think it rounded out the conversation so well. So thank you so much. And their information will also be in the description if you'd like to get in touch with them too. So that's another one in the bag. I'm Veronica. I help small businesses build their empires. And we'll see you next time, next month. We're talking about finances. Woo!